give me a hand count when you're pulling the full screen, sir? Cool. There is a little bit of a delay. It's between 15 and 20 seconds of what you're seeing on screen and what we're doing.
All right. I'll not be distracted by that. Thank you for letting me know.
When I go full screen here, I'm going to encourage people to jump on the live stream and ask questions.
Great.
That we will then respond. This is the first time we've done that, so I'm not sure if people will do that.
Okay. Well, it's exciting. And you feel free to share it onto my page if you want.
I certainly will.
Yeah.
I certainly will. With the full screen and some hot mics for 60 seconds, please. Yes, sir. Full screen and hot mics for 60 seconds where you're checking audio levels for us. And your dog is being a wonderful princess. All righty, sir. And I will see the live feed soon. I'm not seeing it yet. We have open mics. Is that right? We do. There you see it, Rob.
Cool.
I'm going to go full screen here. And Judah, you got that Mac.
Does it say live at the top?
Oh, it certainly does, my friend.
What is the time on that?
There is no time currently. And then do you have it, sir, where it's public? Oh, you do. Look at that. Constance Wyatt watching in the mix here. We have Landon Bray in the mix. Derek Sieg in the mix. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Rob Schilling in studio. You're going to see us full screen very soon. Lauren Linsky in the mix. If you would like to ask Rob Schilling and I any questions, please feel free to use the comment bar on the right. We want to make this as interactive and as multimedia and as intuitive and as easygoing as possible. We'll go live here in about 45 seconds, so we allow the population to happen here on our live stream. We're going to talk all things current events with, I think, were you the last Republican to win a city council spot in Charlottesville?
Indeed, I was.
Yeah.
And
so
probably the last in history.
I would think so.
Yeah, probably so. Just looking at what the trends are, voting trends in Charlottesville.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that. So we have a man who understands not only the nuances of City Hall, but he understands the nuances of covering City Hall. And I think, right before we go live and give you some background, there's been some great coverage of late of things that are happening in City Hall that are certainly strong fodder for shows like this, Rob.
It is, and it's a never-ending source of things to talk about. I remember when I came on the air and people were like, "What are you going to talk about for 2 hours a day, every single day?" And this is the gift that keeps on giving.
Right.
And recently even better. So.
Right. We do have a lot to cover. Judah, we have Judah Wickhauer behind the board making us sound and look good. Show is yours, executive producer. You tell us when you want to pull that full screen and we'll go, my friend. Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. My name is Jerry Miller. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you. Rob Schilling is our guest, and we're going to cover everything current events related here on the I Love CVille Show. First, we're going to pay the bills, Rob, and thank Greenberry's Coffee. For the last 25 years and change, Greenberry's Coffee has been Charlottesville's longest-running coffee roasters, creating jobs across Central Virginia and really fueling and powering us from morning, noon, and night. Now we welcome Rob to the show.
Thank you so much, Jerry. It's great to be here today.
It's our pleasure. We knew when we extended the invitation to you, selfishly, that you were going to make us look better. You're tremendous at what you do. You're a tremendous broadcaster. I listen to your show routinely, and I think we should get straight to the nitty-gritty. A story that's making the rounds across social media is the Daily Progress article that itemized the credit card usage for City Council over the last couple of years. Some of these purchases have gotten a lot of notoriety on social media. Specifically, Councilman Bellamy's purchase at Hooters in South Carolina, and perhaps our mayor's purchase of a pair of kicks, a pair of tennis shoes at Ragged Mountain Running Shop.
$100 tennis shoes.
$100 tennis shoes. We'll start open-ended, Rob. Your thoughts on this story to begin with?
Okay, so I have a very interesting perspective on this, having been in City Council for 4 years. And one of the very last things I did was turn down a free trip to Italy because it was going to be paid for by taxpayers and not privately funded. And I said, you know what? I could go to Italy. That's where my family's from. I'm not going to do it. I said no to that because I didn't think it was right. So when I see stuff like this, it makes me really mad because people are taking advantage of the system. The expectation is if you're serving the public, that you're actually serving the public, and that you should not be taking advantage of having a credit card with $20,000 and you're charging up all of these dinners, you're charging up Uber, particularly, and I think the Hooters thing was probably very culturally insensitive in the Me Too time, that he would choose to go to that establishment even if it was the only thing that was open. But I think the other things were like the high-price hotel rooms, like Kathy Galvin spending $350 a night on hotel rooms in Northern Virginia. Hey, when I go to Northern Virginia, I can get a place for like $100, $125 if I work at it a little bit. So it's just people that have this and they're like, this is public largesse, it's inappropriate, and I think people should be outraged by it.
Let me throw this to you, and I'm going to play devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show.
Yes, indeed.
If someone is going to a different municipality outside the city of Charlottesville for the sole purpose of learning how the ins and outs of that municipality function, is that not city council business that you can then use the credit card to help subsidize your purchases on that trip?
Absolutely not. And
Okay.
the reason
And why
is
is that?
The reason is that we have the internet today, and people are watching us on the internet.
Okay.
So a lot of stuff that used to be done face to face, it can be done like this.
Okay.
You can go online, you can do lots of research. I can learn lots of things about lots of places without going there. Now, it's nice to go there, but is it necessary? That should always be the first question. Is this a necessary expenditure of public funds? And I think most of these things you would look at them and say, absolutely, it was not. It really does depend on the individual and what their perspective is about serving the public. Mine was different, obviously, than the current counselors.
Sure, sure. And okay, how about this question? Because Wes Bellamy, Council Bellamy here, he is indicating, look, I'm going outside of Charlottesville to take research, to gain knowledge, to bring back to home. You're saying, look, let's not use the credit card, hop on FaceTime, hop on Skype, whoever you're going to meet with in South Carolina, you can do it this way. You can save the credit card purchase, and probably even more importantly than the credit card purchase, which frankly I didn't think was a ton of money over the course of 14, 15 months. I'm going to get your opinion on that. But outside of the credit card purchase, even more important, you save the public perception or the negative public perception that comes from these purchases.
So what do people always say about politicians is they get in there and they feed at the public trough, and you see people going up to Washington, D.C., and they're on easy street. They get the pension when they go to Congress. If they're there for 6 years, or maybe it's 5 years, if they cross over the 5-year mark, they're on a pension for life. It was why I was so excited when Tom Perriello was thrown out after the first term. I did not want to see him being paid by the public for the rest of his life. I just didn't want to see it. And I would say the same thing about all of them. I don't want to see that policy there. So when people have a bad and a negative reputation about politicians, it's because they're taking advantage of a position of power they've been put into, and money and the abuse of public funds, I believe, is an extreme abuse of power.
Yeah, you make some very good points here. Then I'll take it to the next level.
Yes.
Do they need to use the credit cards because they're paid such little money? The city councilman, and you know this, he was a city councilman himself, $18,000, the mayor, $20,000. Okay, we're not talking about a ton of money for a lot of hours. I mean, I'm hearing Kathy, Wes, and our mayor saying this is a 30, 40, 50-hour week job, depending on the week. You certainly can speak from perspective here.
So let me tell you, it's more than that. It's as much time as you will give to it. And I knew that when I went into it, and there was no reason for any of the people who are on there right now not to know the same thing in advance. They could have talked to any counselor, including me, but any person in recent history who's been in this job. I spent a lot of time. I sacrificed in a very prime period of my life. I sacrificed 4 years for this city.
How old were you?
I am 57. I just turned 57 years old.
And at the time?
A couple days ago.
And at the time
At the time I was 40 when I was elected. And so, those were prime position of my life when I could have been doing something else.
Sure.
And I decided that I was going to take those 4 years and commit them to the city, and I was willing to do another 4 years. It didn't work out that way, but I was making $12,000 a year, I think, and I didn't have any credit card, and somehow I survived. So I say, don't cry for me, Argentina.
Was there one purchase that was more concerning to you than the other?
Well,
was it the Hooters purchase or was it the shoes?
No, it was neither one of those. Okay. Quite frankly, I always look at the big ticket things, and so I look at the hotel bills and the airline and the air bills. Those were the things that really bothered me because I just thought it was totally inappropriate. They did not have to do that. It wasn't serving the public interest. And by the way, that's why we have a very highly paid staff in City Hall. That is, we have a housing expert who I'm sure is making close to or more than $100,000 a year. That's what she's paid to do. You are not the person who is investigating how to build buildings. You're not investigating what are all the ways that all the different places have affordable housing. You have staff that does that. You educate yourself online. You educate yourself by walking around this community and talking to people, and then you trust your staff to come up with these bigger ideas. That's why they're getting paid the big bucks.
Rob Schilling, our guest, guys. The I Love CVille Show, thanks to Greenberry's Coffee. For the last 25 years, Greenberry's Coffee has been Charlottesville's longest-running coffee roasters. The councilmen in general, powerless. They manage the city manager. I mean, these council folks get all the attention, yet these council folks are not running the city. These council folks have very little to no power. Our mayor, sole purpose for being the mayor of Charlottesville is to be the babysitter of a city council meeting.
Okay, the mayor sets the agenda, and that is a very powerful position. A lot of people don't know this, but I mean, there was times when I was on council, and I'm like, how did this get here? Oh, the mayor wanted it to. Things would just show up on the agenda. We were not consulted. So my experience is that the mayor has more power than is led on popularly. Now, most of the mayors will say, no, that's not the case, because it doesn't look good. Who wants to go around saying, I have all this power? You'll get all the blame when something goes wrong, and lots of things going on wrong around here right now. Frankly, I like our current mayor. I know her personally. She appears on my show a lot. We would probably have a lot of political differences, but we get along famously. And I try to have a good relationship with everybody that I meet, even if I disagree with them. But I really like a lot of the things that Mayor Walker is doing. I think there is some fiscal conservancy there that she really likes to look into some of these things, and I've heard her taking no votes on things that I thought were appropriate because she didn't have enough information.
Well, and guys, you know, Ray Cadell, thank you for contributing to the stream. He says, always an interesting perspective from Rob Schilling. Ray Cadell is giving props to Rob here, and if you have a question for either Rob or I, jump on the stream and ask a question. We're happy to answer. You know, we're talking about, folks, a lot of current issues here in Charlottesville. We talk about the current mayor, and I think, you know, I gained some respect for her because of her platform of transparency. I respect that. I really gained some respect with her when she voted no against the New Hill development.
Indeed, and that's what I was referring to.
And that was a tremendous, I mean, $500,000 allocated to a nonprofit that is geared toward revitalizing or huffing some life into the Star Hill neighborhood. I believe that's the whole premise of the New Hill nonprofit. She said no, and that took a lot of courage because the no that she was giving to were against a lot of the constituents that put her in office to begin with.
Indeed they were, and that's what I was saying. When she sometimes says, for fiscal reasons, I'm not going to do this, in this point it was information. And I used to cast these votes all the time. I was criticized for saying no so often, but if I didn't have enough information, I was not going to put myself on the line. And she said essentially the same thing about this. I didn't have the information, and I don't want any of you out there asking me if something goes wrong, why did I vote yes for it?
Does it concern you that Wes Bellamy was one of the founders of this nonprofit?
Absolutely.
He's off the board now. He has since removed himself from the organization, but he has openly said on social media that this New Hill nonprofit was his idea, his brainchild.
Well, this is inappropriate as it was when Kristen Zakos was on and voted money for Virginia Organizing, which at the time, and I did an investigative research on this, had millions of dollars in the bank, and they were accepting money from the city. Then they gave them, I think, another $250,000 for another project. Totally inappropriate. Again, I was criticized during my council tenure for abstaining on votes, but whenever I even sniffed a conflict of interest, something that I thought someone could come back on me on and say, you know what, I'm not going to vote on this, I'm going to abstain because I think it's the right thing to do. And Bellamy should have abstained from that vote because it was the right thing to do. It still would have passed.
Yeah, it would have passed 3-0.
Yeah,
or 3-2. 3-1 abstain.
Yeah. And so that way he would be beyond reproach on this. And that's the wisdom I think that is missing in some of these votes on council.
Well said. Rob Schilling, our guest, guys, on the I Love CVille Show, thanks to Greenberry's Coffee. We're talking about City Council and the fact that they have been in the headlines of late. One story that really concerned me, and this story was kind of spurred along by Mayor Walker, and this was an adjustment to the compensation package of council members. She wanted, and you can correct me if my numbers are wrong here, she wanted the compensation for the mayor and for city council to be based on a percentage, a prorated percentage of the city manager's pay.
Yes,
the
indeed.
city manager makes an astronomical amount of money, I think
Yes.
$180,000.
I think it's more than that now.
With the total package?
I think the total package is
Pushes it over
well
two.
north of $200,000.
Over
yeah.
$200,000 with a total package. Okay, here's the first question I have. City council negotiates the pay for the city manager. How can city council's pay be based on what the city manager makes when city council negotiates that pay for that position? That's nepotism or a conflict of interest.
Well, it is, and to say I think Mayor Walker didn't think that point through. I think she was looking for a baseline, like here's what we should do as a baseline. I have a feeling if she was sitting here with us right now, she would probably look at that and say, yeah, maybe you're right, Jerry. And I would agree with you.
Did you ask her about that
100%.
already?
No, she's coming on the program this week on Wednesday. So
Okay.
I'll have her with me and I will ask her about that. But I think honestly she would probably say, yeah, maybe that's not the right way to base it on. But I've got to tell you that the city manager, and I had a great criticism for Maurice Jones and for Gary O'Connell before him, but for Maurice Jones because I always have said he was overpaid and underqualified. And I wrote a piece a couple years ago when I did some research into the salaries of the councilors and the people, sorry, not the councilors, of the city manager and the people who were working in the city, and basically called it Charlottesville City's outrageous salary games, where the city manager is paid so much money that in order for it to look like it's legitimate, everybody else there
Their
has
salary
to make
goes
so
up.
much money. And let me give you a very specific example.
Please.
Miriam Dickler came here from Harrisonburg to take the position of city spokesperson. Exact same job in Harrisonburg. She was making half the money. She was making $45,000 a year in Harrisonburg, came here for the same job, and immediately went close to $90,000. That's the joke. That's the facade that Charlottesville is. These people, you should be putting the jobs out to competitive bid, and I'll bet you'd get a lot better deal. I had a person who said, I'd be willing to work for half the price, who was far more qualified than many of the people who wanted the job at the city council.
If you guys have questions, join us on the live stream here. Thank you, Sam King, for that compliment. Says we're sounding and looking good.
Hey, Sam.
Join us on the live stream. Rob's an open book, and he's certainly very knowledgeable when it comes to these topics here. $20,000 for the mayor, $18,000 for city council. Some folks say that when you pay $20,000 for a mayor, $18,000 for city council, and you're asking 30 to 50 hours a week of work, you only get one kind of candidate that can run for these offices. You get an affluent candidate that makes his or her own schedule, perhaps an entrepreneur or business owner, or you often get a retiree who has ample time on his or her hands and perhaps deep pockets to run for the election. Is the current setup with the pay structure, $18,000 and $20,000, keeping maybe folks from middle income, lower class levels that have 9 to 5 jobs and have families from running for these jobs, these positions?
This is provably false. How do we explain Wes Bellamy and Nikuyah Walker? I would say neither one of them fit into the qualifications that you just said, so they're making a way for it. The other problem here is that the city council, the city council makes way too much work for themselves. When I went in there and I went in the room and they say, okay, here's all the boards and commissions that we sit on. And there was like a list of 35 at the time. I remember what it was. And I said, the first thing we should do is pare this list down. You know, what we're doing is we're putting ourselves in the midst of all these groups that we're asking to make decisions in order to try and influence those decisions. So part of it is you pare down the amount of work that you have. There's so much time spent on foolishness. I remember sitting in those meetings toward the end of my tenure, and it was when they were getting ready to put in the melting pot in town. And one of the counselors, I think it was Councilor Caravati, was sitting there peppering the melting pot representative, with questions about the logo and the size of the font and the color of the red. And I'm sitting here, I just wanted to bang my head against the wall.
You're saying it's a waste of time.
We're wasting time. So,
right.
So what you have to do is to be efficient with the way the city runs, and that requires an initiative council. Don't complain to me that you have too much work to do and then create all this extra work for yourself, which is really meaningless.
I think the wasting of the time comes back to ego.
I think
Everyone
you're right.
wants to hear their voice.
Everybody does. Everybody does want to hear their voice. And I understand that's a problem, and it was a problem back then, and it's a problem now. But you have to be able to govern yourselves. You have to be able to put a limit on it, because I know they tried at one time. I think they were trying to shut me down, but it's like, okay, we're going to give everybody this amount of time, and I think they're doing something similar now. But people routinely go over it, and they break the rules. It's called self-governance.
Do you think the pay should be adjusted at all? Do you keep it the same?
I would keep it the same for the time being. It's been adjusted periodically. They got a raise a couple years ago, and you know, I just don't think that's the issue here. And obviously they have perks that I didn't have. A lot of people don't know the city councilors get a very nice insurance package. That's worth some good money.
Explain that to me. I didn't know that.
They have health insurance through the city.
Through the city.
Yeah,
For their family or just themselves?
I can't answer that question, but it's a valuable perk to being on city council to get that sort of insurance for free. That wasn't there when I was there. There was nothing. I just came in and went to work for $12,000 or whatever it was per year.
Rob Schilling, our guest, guys. He's kind enough to join us on the I Love CVille Show thanks to Greenberry's Coffee. For 25 years, Greenberry's Coffee has been Charlottesville's longest-running coffee roasters. When the story broke about the credit card usage,
yes.
What was your initial response? Was it like, this is important information that us as Charlottesvillians, we need to know? Or did you think, like some folks, this is trivial? If you run a business and you understand about credit card reimbursements, travel expenses, per diems, rental cars, hotels, this is the norm. Your thoughts, Rob?
No, to me it was like, this is deja vu all over again, to paraphrase Yogi Berra. It was the same sort of thing that we saw with Sherry Iachetta a few years ago, and she had credit cards.
The registrar?
She had phones and all this stuff going on. Those were considered felonies, and she was driven out of her position because of an abuse relatively minor compared to this. I didn't have any credit card. If I had some expense, I would pay it and submit it back there and give them an explanation for what it was. This jet-setting mentality that we're so important, we have to go all these places and collect research is just ridiculous. It's not defensible.
How about Mayor Walker's response that I would rather have the city pay with a credit card for my shoes than Corin Capshaw and Red Light Management, one of the biggest developers in the city of Charlottesville?
That's not the choice here. Pay for it yourself. I mean, I'm sure she would disagree with me because she's already made the point.
She has said. She said, I was not going to use my own money to buy those shoes.
You know what?
She said that.
Then don't do the event. Mayor Walker can't do the running event because, one, she can't afford the shoes herself to run in, or number two, she chooses not to spend her limited resources in that way. She was not compelled to be a part of this event.
But playing devil's advocate with you, okay,
Yeah.
so having the mayor being a part of this event, running in the event, being accessible and approachable and transparent, and having the ability for any socioeconomic level to have a conversation with the mayor in a respectful fashion at a race, I think, Rob, that has value for building community, for building trust with our elected officials. And I think having her out on the front lines is a positive. I don't see a lot of other elected officials. I mean, I'm cutting to the chase here. Since Mike botched A12, Mike has been a recluse.
Yes, he has.
We are not seeing Mike doing any of the stuff. In fact, I believe about a month ago, there was a report out with was it the Thomas Jefferson Planning Commission, and he was a member there, and he's not showing up to the meetings.
Up to meetings for months.
Right. He's been a recluse.
Yeah.
And I think initially, and this guy, when he took office and was a mayor, he looked senatorial to me.
Well,
I'm
did.
like, this guy is clean cut, good looking, has a job, is a lawyer, can talk, can play the game, silver tongue.
Yeah.
This guy could be one of our senators. And then he botched A12.
Well, he blew it big time, and I think his mismanagement of council meetings surrounding all of that has just tanked his political career. He had run for higher office, and then he kind of stepped back because he couldn't get that.
Right.
And then he said, okay, let me go into Charlottesville politics, and then I'll launch from there. I think his political career is over. But I want to go back to the mayor for just a second. Yes, it's a great thing that she was doing that. If she honestly had a hard time affording because she couldn't afford the shoes, I'm sure there were people from the organization that put on that run that would have taken care of it for her. I just think the optics of, hey, I'm going to buy shoes to go run in this race just doesn't play well with a lot of people. And why create controversy around yourself when you can avoid it? I think really that's the bottom line.
You're basically saying in hindsight, it's a $100 pair of shoes. The trouble that's come from this,
it wasn't worth it.
It's not worth it.
Yeah,
the trouble's much greater than $100.
It's not worth it at all.
Yeah. Rob Schilling, our guest. A couple more questions I want to throw to you here.
Indeed.
And when you look at council, there's some discussion being given to maybe we make this a mayor-empowered city. Maybe we make this where the mayor, like the city of Richmond, is actually running the city as opposed to being a figurehead. Wes has proposed this suggestion. Maybe we make the mayor a voted position where the person with where literally it's like, I'm running for mayor, I have to get the most votes to get into this position, and the number 2 spot becomes the vice mayor. Open-ended first, and then we'll get into specifics. What are your thoughts on these umbrella ideas?
Okay, so that was something that I had to put into discussion back in my time on city council. There were 2 things that I wanted to do. One of them I got done, one of them I didn't. One of them was the elected school board, which everyone said, you're a fool, you'll never get it done. It can't be done. We got a bipartisan coalition together back in 2005, put it on the ballot, it passed with 70%. So we proved people they were wrong. I was interested in an elected mayor, but only if we have district or ward-based elections in the city.
Talk to me about that.
Okay, so we have an at-large election here, which makes it very hard for people who would be very popular in their own neighborhood to get elected citywide. They can be run over by the machine that the Democrats have established here. And so I have always been an advocate for that. It's the same sort of representation that we have on the congressional level, where people represent a district. This was used, and primarily by Democrats throughout the history of Virginia, to disenfranchise black people from becoming elected. And we can see a manipulation, a racial manipulation of Charlottesville elections. And I've done the research on this, and I've written an extensive report on this that people can look up online. But I have seen this going back to Charles Barber, the first elected person who happened to be black in Charlottesville, and then this kind of succession going along, and then it didn't happen for a while. There was a deal with the Democrats and some of the pastors, hey, we'll give you always one black city councilor. But up until recently, until this last election, there was never more than one at a time, and never even did the Democrats run another person of color while one was already serving. It was, and I have testimony from people who I talked to. There's a guy by the name of Plew Johnson. His brother, R.A. Johnson, was the head of the Pilgrim Baptist Church here in town. They're both passed on now. But I sat down with Plew Johnson not long after I was elected and asked him to tell me about what goes on here. And he said, you know, they asked me to run for city council. They said, we want you to be the black person on city council for this time. And there was a lady by the name of Marianne Elwood, who was a kingmaker for the Democrats in Charlottesville. And she said, but if you run, we tell you how to vote. And he basically said, you can kiss my, and I'm not going to say what he said, but you can imagine what the word is. And he just walked out. Now, this guy was a Democrat, but he was not going to be manipulated like that. And that is the political climate. And people listening right now who are around Charlottesville know that I'm telling the truth on this. And I have documentation that this was the sort of thing that was going on here. So no wonder that people are mad. But the way that you solve that is you break up these at-large elections like the Department of Justice did in other places in Virginia and across the South, and you put in a system of districts or wards so that people can have decentralized representation.
So what you're basically saying, and I don't want to assume here, you chop up the city of Charlottesville into 5 districts. You maybe have the south side, which is 5th Street Extended, Avon Extended, Mosby, Redfields, Lake Renovia, Mill Creek, etc. Then maybe you have downtown proper that could include North Downtown, Belmont, etc. What are you thinking, like a 29 North?
There would have to be a way to do this that was legally permissible. The Department of Justice would have to be involved and have to approve the plan. Upon my bringing this up, they conducted what was called an election studies task force all those years ago, and they commissioned a whole bunch of people to look into all of these options, the elected mayor and the ward elections and all that, and they wrote a report on it. Sean O'Brien was the chair of the committee. They came back after about a year and 8 public hearings and came back with some recommendations, some information. David Brown, who was the mayor at the time, basically took the thing and said, thank you very much, and threw it in the trash. They had no intention of ever following through, but there was such public pressure to look into this. And what's very interesting about the history that never came up, except a guy looked into it and found it for me, was that Maurice Cox, who was mayor at the time, and he had been elected in 1998. When he was running for office in 1998, Maurice Cox said, we need to look at a ward system. All of a sudden he got elected, and that was not a good idea anymore. And he never told anybody that. Somebody dug it up at one of the
newspapers. You're saying he got elected and never came up again because he
Yes.
knew if there was a ward system, it would impede him from potentially winning again?
Well, that it would be trouble with the party. The party put him up. The Democratic Party in Charlottesville was totally against this idea for forever, whenever it came up. And so he knew that that was not going to be politically palatable to hold that position anymore. So that would have been lost to history if somebody hadn't gone to the microfiche and looked it up.
I'm going to have Lloyd Snook on the I Love CVille show on Thursday of this week. Lloyd Snook, why I bring him up, was the one-time chairman of the Democratic Party here in Charlottesville, a man for a while entrusted with cherry-picking and hand-picking people to run for council. Why is the Democratic Party, and I've been here since 2000, so 18 years, you're more knowledgeable about this than I am. Why is the Democratic machine, as you've called it, so powerful, so full of momentum, so much more dominant in this community than its counterpart?
Well, this has been ongoing in Virginia for a long time. I mean, Virginia was run, the Byrd machine was here, and basically the way things were set up, the reason that we had these, all of these places being, all of these offices being appointed like school boards were so that they could come down from Richmond, so that the governor could say, hey, these are the people that we want. And there was a patronage system going on here. And so this was the Virginia way for a long time. And that's why we had an appointed school board instead of an elected school board. So that vestige of power kind of found its way down to Charlottesville. One of the things people don't know about, and we did the research on this back in the early part of the last century, in Charlottesville, there were 12 city councilors. I think they were called aldermen at the time. During the Byrd years, there was a consolidation of power where they shrunk the council down briefly to 3 people to consolidate the power of this city in 3 people. This is what the Democrats did. It was eventually overturned, and then they wound up where we are at 5 right now. But this is part of the problem, is that you have this small group of people, like you do in many political fiefdoms. In other places, is you have a Republican machine. But in this place, this is who the electorate is, this is who has supported them over the years, and this is who holds the power.
Guys, if you want to join us, hop on the stream and ask some questions. We have some questions coming in. And one question here is from Steve, and we appreciate Steve. And he says, Rob, it looks like for us to get balance back in our community, we need the Republican Party to gain some nuts.
Okay, let me just say this: it's not going to happen. I agree with you on that. I mean, we do need to have a bold party, but this is like a scarlet letter. If you go knock on someone's door and say I'm a Republican, you'll be run off the property most likely.
Well, that's why Fenwick ran as independent, right?
Well,
he started as independent. Then he changed to Democrat, or was he independent the entire
you're right.
time?
He ran twice as an independent and lost,
and then
won as a Democrat. So this tells you something, and I've talked to people who thought about changing their party affiliation just to run for office here. So the problem is that we need to get people who are independent-minded Democrats, and we need to change the way that we elect people, because I just don't think it's going to happen. If you look at the numbers in the last election, I think in Charlottesville it was either 84 or 86% of the people voted for Democrats in the last election. A Republican doesn't win that way. I come in under the perfect storm. 2 things happened. One was 9/11, and people were very bipartisan at that time, as you'll recall. The second thing is that I came in against a split ticket of Democrats, Blake Caravati and Alexandria Searles, who didn't like each other much, who were very, very different, one really traditional, one quite liberal. And so there were people around this town who had Schilling and Searles or Schilling and Caravati signs in their yard. They would cut the Democrat sign off, and then they would put my sign there with them because they didn't like the ticket. And that goes back to this whole ridiculous system that we have.
Well, the 2-party system?
No, the system of at-large elections. They shouldn't have had to make that choice. They should have just run in every district. Then you have 1 or 2 or 3 people. Maybe you have 4 Democrats running against each other in a place, not just 1.
Seems like our city council, and I love, I'm choosing my words carefully here.
Yes.
And it seems like our city council at times is more focused with social justice as opposed to economic stimulus. And I think that's fair. And where I'm going with this as a leverage or as a point of reasoning is the fallout with Keith Woodard on Water Street. We had an $80 million project that, frankly speaking, would have created tremendous amount of jobs at every socioeconomic level. That would have certainly benefited and created jobs for folks in the Star Hill neighborhood or in Friendship Court, in Prospect, and down Fifeville and Cherry Avenue. So I saw this as an opportunity if City Council and City Hall had managed the project correctly and allowed it to continue. I mean, Keith put in like $1.3 million of his own money before saying, to hell with this. I'm leaving $1.2 million on the table. I can't deal with these folks. I'm out. That's really concerning to me.
Well, it's terrible. And again, my institutional knowledge is the same thing happened with Oliver Kutner some years ago. And I remember Oliver just being so frustrated.
I'm going to Lynchburg.
Yeah, he did. I'm taking it all. And I went down to Lynchburg with him, and he had a plan. He's all, I'm going to buy all this property. It was really cheap at the time, waterfront property and all this stuff downtown. I'm going to buy these buildings, and here I'm going to put a coffee shop, and here I'm going to put some live music, and here I'm going to put this and that. I mean, he had envisioned his whole
He's a visionary.
thing. He is. Yeah. But he just didn't want to work here anymore. And I say to Keith Woodard and to others in his position, if you lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. Keith Woodard has played the game for a long time, and I've met him a few times back to my council days. I have nothing against him personally, and it's not just him, but it's all the people on the downtown mall who have grave concerns, but they're all scared to speak out against the city council because that's who butters their bread. But I'm saying if you lie down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. You need to speak up. You need to tell the truth. And if something crooked or rotten is going on here, you need to be willing to stand up and say it.
You're basically saying that they need to hold them accountable and say, look, this is what is actually happening and why I'm walking away from $1.2 million that I've put in, skin in the game. The flip side of that is, why are they going to alienate people that are only going to be around for 4 years? Just let them finish their term and see if they can get some more people in the position that are willing to work with them.
Well, you know, it goes back to Steve, and he said, you know, the Republican Party's got to get a set. You know, and so I say the Charlottesville downtown businesses and the developers need to grow a pair. And they need to be able to stand up and just tell the truth. I mean, you could wait it out, but it doesn't give any indication that it's going in a better direction right now, quite frankly. It's going to be harder to recruit candidates because people don't want to deal with the chaos that goes on in the chambers, and they don't want to deal with the political
because
chaos.
You're saying the perception is that, like, it's chaos. It's a zoo that, like, and no one wants to put their most precious commodity, which is our time, on the line when you know you're going to do it in a place that's arguably chaotic and cause you a lot of headaches for very little pay.
And it's dangerous as well. And I know there are city councilors who don't even feel safe in the council chambers, and it's very sad. But I know that to be the case, and it shouldn't be that way. So there's not a good political environment right here. People are beating the bushes. I'm aware as we speak, trying to find some reasonable people to run for city council. But who wants to go stand up at a debate and start getting screamed at, you're a racist, or some other epithet that they're going to throw at you? Who wants to put themselves in that? Very few people that would stand up for that.
Tyler Berry here saying, Rob Schilling, very good point right there. The crossroads or the dichotomy or the balance of economic growth, economic stimulus, and affordable housing. Everywhere I look now, it seems one of the hot topics in today's news cycle in Charlottesville is affordable housing, public housing, subsidized housing. We know Riverbend Development, Allen Taylor, and Corn Capshaw are taking Crescent Halls. They're going to make it better. Interestingly, it's right across Corin's building. So he literally looks at Crescent Halls all the time. So he's probably like, this building needs a lot of work.
Yes.
So I'm going to start open-ended with you here, and I'm so grateful for your time here. Can economic growth, economic stimulus, a focus on driving the economy in Charlottesville coincide and live in the same breath as public and affordable and subsidized housing in Charlottesville?
Well, all affordable housing in Charlottesville presently is subsidized housing. There is no difference. You're taking money from people who are already here and giving it to people who aren't, or to people who are here who will then be getting your money. That is not a proper function of government. It never has been, and it never will be under the U.S. Constitution. Unfortunately, it's done in many, many places. The way to solve the problem is, if you have a shortage of housing that's driving the prices up, you build more housing. I've seen them trying, even on some of the subsidized projects, or you have to give a certain amount of money into the Affordable Housing Fund. That's just extortion. But the developers bring in the project, and then the neighbors stand up and say, but we don't want that here. It's going to bring too much traffic. Hey, I understand. I used to live in Greenberry. If somebody came into my neighborhood and said, hey, I want to build, a 3-story building here with 20 units, I wouldn't like that either, because that's not what I bought into. But you can't have it both ways. And the idea that we're going to solve this problem is by taking money from people who are already living here who may be marginalized. Look at how much the taxes have gone up on your property. People who bought property here a long time ago, all of a sudden, well, let's say it went up $200 to pay for someone else's affordable housing just in 1 year.
Right.
That may drive them out of the city. So I call it affordable living. How can we make it affordable to live in Charlottesville? And there are a lot of components to that.
If the long-term growth and future of Charlottesville, does it having real estate values that increase, real estate assessments that are going north, that creates a trickle down and a trickle over effect everywhere. If real estate values are appraising and they're going north, that's good. I mean, for all of us, a lot of us, our most important, our most valuable investment is our home.
Right.
If I see my home in Redfield going from the $378 that I paid in December of 2013 to like $470 and change of now, I feel confident that I can spend some disposable money at local businesses and support local entrepreneurs. Right. So from where I'm going with this is, everyone that's complaining about Charlottesville so expensive, real estate so high, taxes are so high, some ways, is that not a positive for us in our economy?
Here's the problem. The problem is the system of taxation, and the problem is that I think we have spineless politicians who consider the money theirs first. the statute in Virginia, and I can't tell you the number of it, but basically it says that the rate needs to be equalized every year. So in other words, if your taxes went up 20%, then the rate would drop by 20%, so you don't get slammed every single year. In California, we had something called Proposition 13, which means if you buy a house at $200,000, the amount you're paying is 1.25% of that. As long as you own the house, it can go up no more than 2% a year. So you're protected. This doesn't happen. We don't have that in Virginia. But what the politicians should be doing is every year, instead of looking at this, hey, look at all the windfall I have because the values went up, is you equalize the rate back down, and then you prove to me, which is what you're supposed to do, that you need that extra money. They never do that. They'll say they do, but when push came to shove a few years ago, when the properties weren't going up and they were falling, we talked about 2008 earlier, they had to make do. It was what I called at the time the new economic reality. The same thing the state had to do. They had to cut their budget. They had to live within their means, and the frivolity had to go away until good times came in again. Stop living your good times off my own earnings is what I would say to them.
Well said. Rob Schilling on fire, guys. Rob Schilling, you can find him online at robschilling.com.
Schillingshow.com.
Schillingshow.com. Guys, this portion of the program, thanks to Greenberry's Coffee for 25 years. Greenberry's Coffee, Charlottesville's longest-running coffee roasters. The outline and the kind of the very reasonable statement you just made is based on one thing: City Hall having common sense.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that, because when I was running for office, it's like, how am I going to market myself? And my little red signs that were all over this city said common sense leadership underneath it, because I knew in talking to
Your
people,
tagline.
This is what they thought was missing from City Hall, even back then, which looks very commonsensical right now in retrospect. But even back then, they're like, wow, somebody who can relate to a common person and knows what common sense is, yes, I will give him my vote.
You know what? I've thought personally myself to run for city council. You know, I feel like I have, like you, the gift of gab. I can connect with people. You know, I have a plan. And I think what's missing from city council and what potentially I can offer, and I'm not saying I'm running. Hell, I live in Albemarle County right now. I could do it anyway. Yeah. Is a council member that is perhaps business focused. Someone who is worried about 2019 and then 2020, each year after that, being a little bit better from an economic standpoint.
Right.
Why is that not there? Is someone providing that value on council now? Is it
don't-
Mike?
No, I don't see it at all. I don't think Mike has a business background. He's a lawyer.
He's a lawyer for Willow Tree.
Right. So that it's not there with him. And you know,
Were you the last one?
I'm not sure who came after me. I'd have to think about that a little bit. But I mean, I have a business degree. Okay? I have a Bachelor of Science in Business, and that was my specialty. I've run businesses and been involved in business for my entire life.
You're looking at it as a small business owner.
Right.
And that's what makes our community great, is our small business owners, like myself, being strong and confident with our disposable income.
Yeah, and I think right now there's a great deal of people who are concerned and do not have that confidence you speak of, because they don't know what's coming next. They don't know what the next initiative is going to be. They don't know what the next A12 is going to be, or the next crisis that's being self-inflicted upon the community by incompetent governance. And so there's no stability, and that makes people very hesitant to invest.
Very well said. Rob Schilling, guys, our guest. I'm going to wind down the interview with a couple quick-hitting questions for you.
Yes, indeed.
The future of Fifeville and the Cherry Avenue corridor. I proposed an idea on ilovecville.com about maybe moving the farmers market to the Kim's Market location. Right when you get into the Fifeville corridor, Kim's Market is this very, I mean, it's god-awful. It needs some TLC. And putting the farmers market there might offer that TLC and create that sense of community, and a sense of community that needs that feeling.
Yes.
Okay? What is the future of Fifeville and the Cherry Avenue corridor? Does it get gobbled by the UVA machine? Does it turn into 600 to 1,000 square foot studio apartments for 25-year-olds who are looking to stumble to the downtown mall? Or can we maintain the integrity and character of the neighborhood and do well by its local residents?
Well, this is really the challenge, and I understand when people are very upset when they see these big developments coming in. So the question is, what do we want out of the neighborhood? What does the neighborhood want? Do they have a representative on council? Right now, I would say they really don't, because there's nobody from that, who's specifically representing that area. So people are looking at the broader interests of Charlottesville, and maybe everybody else says, hey, we want all this tax revenue. Look at how much money it could bring in if we just bulldozed a bunch of these houses, or look at some of the problems we could solve by if we take out the low-income houses and put in student housing. Hey, less students in school now, and we have all other sorts of things, maybe less police calls to the area and so forth. Hey, these are things that Maurice Cox was bringing up in talking about gentrification of these same areas years ago. So I think really we have to come up with what is the plan that we want to have here. What does the actual community living there want right now, and do they have a representative on council to represent those interests, or are the interests being pulled by citywide interests, and the person who should be representing that area does not exist?
Which is a microcosm of your argument, which we started with, which is the city should be broken up into wards or districts, and each district or ward should have a member that goes to bat for that district and doesn't care so much, I choose my words carefully, cares about the city,
Absolutely.
but knows that that district is its bread and butter.
Right, because we all have interest in this community, and none of us wants to see somebody else fail. But it's the same model that we use for representation at the state level and the federal level, and there's a reason that we are a republic and not a direct democracy.
You killed it today. Rob Schilling, guys, he kills it. Give us some info on your show, your website, how we can get touched by the Rob Schilling brand and knowledge.
Fantastic. I hope people will visit me online at schillingshow.com. I've got, I think, about 10 years probably of material there, of investigative reporting, stories that have gone all over the world and have made national media a number of times, and I'm very grateful for that. And you can listen to my show weekdays noon to 2 on Newsradio 98.9 and AM 1070. You can check out podcasts at schillingshow.com or even listen live online at schillingshow.com. And I have an email button over at the website if people can reach me there, schillingshow@gmail.com. I'm always happy to talk to people. You know, some people think of me as like this ogre, and I love all people. You know, I'm a Christian, and that colors my view, my worldview. I love talking to people, and so I can have a good friendship and a good relationship with Mayor Nikuyah Walker. I've had Wes on my show before. I don't hate people. I may disagree with them vehemently. I may be very critical of what they do, but I love to be friends with people all over the place. So I welcome outreach.
Very well said. We close with the same question for everybody. How long have you been in Charlottesville?
I came in my wife and I came here in 1998.
98, so 20 years.
Yes, we just, in August the 6th, we left California for Virginia.
From California to Virginia. We close with the same question.
Yeah.
20 years has passed since you've been to Charlottesville. Is Charlottesville, Virginia a better place in 2018 as opposed to 1998 when you first arrived?
I would probably say in some ways, yes. I like being able to eat Thai food in Charlottesville. There are certain things that I enjoy here that were not here when we came. But I would say, by and large, on the whole, it is not, and that's very sad, but there's a lot of places. The places I left 20 years ago in Southern California are far worse than they were when we left
For
them.
what reason?
For what reason are they worse?
Yeah.
We've got so many problems and so many divisions in this community, and I think it really goes back to the self-centeredness and self-serving people in the political realm that instead of creating, who say they want to create unity, but instead create a lot of divisions. And people were getting along a lot better. People of all races, of political parties, were getting along a lot better when I came here in 1998, and through many subsequent years than they are now.
Might be the advent of social media.
Well, that certainly hasn't helped.
Yeah. Social media is galvanizing. Yeah. All right, guys, he killed it. We got to close it down. I'm grateful.
Hey, thank you so much, Jerry. It was great, and I'd be happy to come back anytime and talk with you again.
Schillingshow.com. I'm Jerry Miller, guys. It's I Love CVille. Thanks to Greenberry's Coffee. We hope you have a fantastic Charlottesville. And as always, be good to each other. Please be good to each other. Yeah. It's a wrap.
All right. And perfect. I mean, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you wrapped it up at the right time, didn't you? Yeah.
I'll share this on your page. You crushed it.
Yeah, fantastic.
We take the video content, we archive it on I Love CVille. So
Great.
it'll have a shelf life of like 2 weeks.
Is it up there? Like, can I link to it and embed it in my website? Is there an embedding feature?